On the day Modi government, Modi 3 presented its first budget, I am joined by former Finance Minister Mr. P Chidambaram, also a former Home Minister, but today he joins us as the former Finance Minister who has presented 9 Union Finance budgets. Mr. Chidambaram, welcome to NDTV.
Good evening.
Mr. Chidambaram, you have said that the jobs claim is highly exaggerated. The jobs claim that has been made by the government is highly exaggerated. Why do you say so?
Well, they have just plucked 3 numbers from the air. 210 lakh, 30 lakh and 50 lakhs. There is no basic data which shows how many enterprises, how many firms, how many industries have been brought under the scheme. You just pluck 3 numbers and add it up and say 290 lakhs. This is like their claim that 2 crore jobs will be created every year. Did they create 2 crore jobs every year for the last 10 years? So unless I see credible data, I'm not willing to accept for the time being the 290 lakh number that they have floated. If there is credible data, we can always reconsider the position.
Also, Mr. Chidambaram, on the jobs front, before I come to other critical part of inflation and food inflation on which you have also commented, but on the jobs front, Mr. Chidambaram, you say that you are happy that the government has copied some of your ideas from the Congress manifesto. Are you happy for the fact that the ideas have been copied, or are you happy for the fact that finally, more progress, obviously some progress has been made by this government in the decade. You can call it slow, they will call it, super fast, but are you happy because more progress can be made through your ideas as you claim?
I'm happy for several reasons. The first reason is the ideas that they have copied are good ideas. Irrespective of the origin of the ideas are good ideas, and they will take this country, this economy forward. Secondly, I'm happy that they've recognized why they suffered such a setback in the elections. They suffered the setback in the elections mainly because of unemployment and, of course, other reasons. So I'm glad that they recognized that they have to address the question of unemployment. And I'm happy that they have also recognized that some of the taxes are completely misplaced taxes. The angel tax is a misplaced tax, was a misplaced tax. And we have pleaded for the abolition of the angel tax. They have finally recognized it. So I'm glad that they realized that they took wrong decisions, and those decisions must be corrected, and they are obliged to take the right decisions.
Let me come to another very tricky point for middle class, lower middle class, middle class and upper middle class, all. And that is the point of inflation, more critically the point of food inflation, which even by the government's estimation, even by the government's admission, is a sticky inflation, sticky food inflation. Now you are saying, Mr. Chidambaram, that there is absolutely no progress or no movement forward in tackling the inflation, and inflation remains unreasonably high.
Please understand, in a budget speech which I've printed, it runs to about 58 pages. And there are thousands of words. I've not counted the words yet. The Finance Minister dismisses the issue of inflation in exactly 10 words. Exactly 10 words in paragraph 3. Is that showing respect to the biggest challenge facing the people and facing the economy. Please understand the numbers. WPI inflation is 3.4%. CPI inflation is 5.1%. Food inflation is 9.4%. The RBI has flatly refused to lower the bank rate for the last 18 to 24 months. And I don't think they will lower the bank rate even in July or September or so. Therefore, the inflation is a major problem. Tomatoes are selling at 100 rupees a kg. And inflation in potato, onion, and tomato are all in double digits. In fact, more than 30% to 40%. And if you don't address the question of inflation, when will you address it? You don't address it in a budget speech. You don't address it in a discussion. You dismiss it and saying there's no inflation. I mean, therefore, I'm pointing out that you have to address the two biggest challenges faced by the economy. One is unemployment, the other is inflation. And both affect across the country, all sections, except, of course, the very rich friends of the government. It affects all sections, especially the middle class.
Now, Mr. Chidambaram, let me go back to the point of internship with the corporates, something that your party had also pitched. Originally, that idea has been there, and some democracies, some Western democracies particularly, have tried it during various phases. Now, do you think that, realistically speaking, this is the way forward? Although your party has been proposing it, but in the state governments where this scheme, the internship schemes, etc., have been tried, have somehow in the past seen that the desired results have not come forth. So, do you think that this will tackle the challenge head on, or do you think that jobs crisis will require much more in terms of a fulsome answer?
Of course, it will require much more. Look at the 3 paragraphs that the Finance Minister has devoted to address this issue. She says, 1 month's salary in 3 installments up to 15,000 rupees. The scheme is expected to benefit 210 lakh youth. Now, which enterprises, which class of enterprises? Are they large firms or MSMEs? There's no indication at all. Similarly, another scheme that will incentivize additional employment in the manufacturing sector, employment of first-time employees. And if they register with the EPFO, that is 30 lakh youth. Now, how many companies have you contacted? What is the kind of companies? You must have done some study before you made these announcements in paragraphs 20 to 22. And additional employment, you will reimburse up to 3,000 rupees per month for 2 years, and that will create jobs for 50 lakh people. These are as vague can be. You have to have clearly defined schemes, and the fine print has to be looked into. And these are necessary but not sufficient. You'll have to address it in a wider manner. Manufacturing is stuck at contributing 15% of GDP. Now, which country has become a major industrial power if its manufacturing is stuck at 15% of GDP? The manufacturing's contribution must be much more. Unfortunately, agriculture takes up almost 27%. So you'll have to have comprehensive schemes to create employment in manufacturing, but that I don't find in the budget speech.
Mr. Chidambaram, as you and I speak, and as I was walking into this studio for this interview, the Supreme Court of India has decided not to order a retest in NEET. In your column and in your press conference, both, you have written extensively about the education sector of the country, the education that requires further fillip, further boost from your in your mind, in your viewpoint. Now, do you think that in terms of education at various levels, in terms of higher education, in terms of primary education, and in terms of secondary education, the budget has done enough or has moved, according to you, in the right direction?
The budget is not even referred to school education and the grave deficiencies in school education. Do you know that 1/2 of our students, an average child spends only about 7 to 8 years in school. And at the end of that 7 to 8 years, 1/2 of the children cannot read a simple text in any language or write a simple text in any language. They cannot do multiplication and division. That is the quality of school education. We are not talking about CBSE schools or these elite schools or some very good government schools. We are talking about the large mass of schools. And that is where the bulk of the students study. Now, if they are numerically challenged and linguistically challenged, what skills do they learn in a school? And there are thousands and thousands of schools which have no library, no laboratory. There are hundreds of schools with inadequate classrooms, no benches, no chairs, no teaching equipment. There are one-teacher schools, underline one-teacher schools in thousands of schools. The last number I saw was 100,000 schools are one-teacher schools. Now, you have to address this huge deficiencies in school education. NEET, remember, is a end of school test. It's only those who complete 12 years take the NEET. But the bulk of students don't complete 12 years. So NEET does not enter the picture. The basic school education must be addressed. And then you allot in the budget, not for school education, but for all education, you allot 1,16,417 crore in 23-24. And you spend only 1,08,878 crore. About 8,000 crore is not spent. There are schools all over India which are crying for funds to build a classroom, to buy a computer, to build a library, to build a laboratory. Do you know how to spend your money? If you don't know how to spend the money, well, why don't you give it to somebody who can spend the money? There are many, many NGOs who will spend the money usefully. You give the money to me, I will build another 100 classrooms in my constituency.
Well, Mr. Chidambaram, the primary education, of course, will also remain the state government's business. So that also we have to keep in mind. However, before I let you go, my final question
please allow me to complete. Please allow me to You are not allowing me to complete.
Please go ahead.
If education and school education is if school education is to be left to the states, why are you holding NEET? It's the end of school test. Let them hold the test. What is the quality of education they've imparted for 12 years and who's successful in the examination? You come as an examiner, but you don't worry about the product which you are examining. You have the money, rope in the state governments, collaborate with the state governments, lay down benchmarks and improve your school education in this country. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Fairly valid point. Mr. Chidambaram, my final question to you before I let you go is on the critical aspects of jobs and inflation, on which you have been saying and your party has been saying that the government has also got the message from the voters. Do you think this budget moving in the right direction? What is your assessment of the budget on these two critical fronts of jobs and inflation?
Well, on the question of skilling and apprenticeship, it has taken the first step, but there's a long journey. Otherwise, I don't find this budget addressing the question of unemployment. On the question of inflation, I will give 0 to this budget. It does not even acknowledge that there is raging inflation in the country, and it mocks at the price rises and people who suffer from price rise. Just come with me to the rural India. The farther you go away from the main highway, the farther you go into interior parts of India, the prices are higher. What you measure and what is reported by the MOSPI as retail inflation and wholesale inflation is data collected close to metros and close to highways. The farther you move into the hinterland of the country, the inflation is much higher. And they don't even seem to acknowledge that there is high inflation in this country, and everybody, except their very thin crust of rich families, every family is affected by inflation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chidambaram, as always, for being candid and forthright. Thank you for joining NDTV.
Thank you, Nikunj. Thank you.